Welcome to Culture Gone Bad, a podcast hosted by Alexandra Saushkina
and Jupi Daura. Join us for a seductive spectacle of cruelties and paradoxes in current events, fashion tragedies, and cultural symbolisms.
This show will leave you with lots of ideas, thoughts, contradictions, and self-reflection, which is so much needed in this cruel and mad world. Culture Gone Bad is back, and we are looking very fresh and nice because we just touched up our makeup.
Speak for yourself. I don't look fresh at all.
Well, Jupi, I don't know what you get up to. I just do face masks and yoga because I'm a lady of leisure.
Mm.
We were just discussing off the record how everyone thinks we are at the party, living very wild lifestyles, while in reality, we probably have the most wholesome lifestyles.
No, I've got the most boring lifestyle, and having a boring lifestyle is the only way of looking a bit younger, I think. But everybody thinks that I am a bit younger, but I go to parties and raves all the time, and little do they know that I don't drink, I don't use drugs or anything. I've got other pleasures.
Well, that's it. I don't think our lifestyles are boring. At least I'm never bored, right?
No. Being bored and being boring are two different things. I'm never bored. I forgot what being bored means because I do so much
I sometimes
stuff.
meet boring people.
Yeah, exactly. I am not bored at all, but I am boring to most people's standards, let's say.
Well, you know what? I think my life philosophy, we should try to stay away from most people's standards as much as we can. Because what do we say? Something which is common is not normal.
Agreed.
Right. So, Drippy, on this note, have you ever had a burning desire to participate in beauty pageant? I can never pronounce that word right.
I'm not tall enough.
Well,
have you?
Me, I did not want to participate. I wanted to win. I mean, come on. I think anything we do in life, we should expect to win, even if we know we might not. I think if you go with a mentality of taking a risk and going for it, you might as well do well. And then if you fail, you will learn a very good lesson.
Yes, but quoting Paolo Sorrentino is not enough for me to win. For me, it's enough that other people should lose. Okay, not only I need to win, but other people must lose.
Okay,
that's
right.
The motto of our lives.
Nice. Right. Well, I think it looks like many people had a burning desire to participate in beauty pageant. And recently the title it was Miss America, right? Taken by transgender
Miss Netherlands.
Miss Netherlands.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So
no, Miss America had several trans women participating in Miss America, not gaining the title of Miss America, but gaining other titles like Miss Nebraska, etc. Yeah.
You know, I think I have a very, I don't know, biased vision, a very stereotypical vision of beauty pageants, but I always thought that would be very attractive women who have this, extreme extreme feminist, no, extreme feminine features. Like, they would have long, bouncy hair, they would have perfect white smile, they would be thin, not toned, like, sort of, American housewife. This is probably my idea of, like, I don't know, American 60s housewife. That's probably my idea of a beauty pageant winner. And the pictures I've been looking at, not on the winners, but on the participants, they remind me of nothing from my ideas. I'm actually surprised any of these people qualified to participate. not
I think
only.
you're talking about the American one though, because the Miss Netherlands, the one where the trans woman won, the girls were stunning, were very, very stereotypically beautiful. But yeah, Miss
Okay.
America, that was not the final. That was one of the qualifications to get there.
Mhm.
And it was also won by a trans woman who was very far from any idea of feminine beauty. But anyway, even the other participants, as you say, were very far from any idea of feminine beauty.
Yeah, but what is the standard to participate in one? So height is one?
Height, I don't even think that height is the most important one. Is obviously I don't think there is any chart. There is a group of people who judge, these women based on looks, and they take in consideration everything, even how you answer to questions. That what pageants are about: how you walk, how you answer to questions, how you look, your general harmony, let's say. In presenting yourself, and you're right about the fact that it is a stereotypical idea of feminine beauty, but beauty is stereotypical. I mean, beauty, I am not so sure. I mean, it's not that I'm not so sure. We know scientifically that there are things within in beauty standards that are not socially and culturally constructed. There are things that go beyond cultural construction, and they are pretty evolutionary. So, you have to, and you are right when you say the housewife. I think that the beauty pageants, the beauty queens, need to represent not the exception to the norm, but the norm in its perfection. Does it make sense?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not the outlier that they're looking for, is the best representative of the norm. And that's what the stereotypical idea of a 1950s housewife is.
Totally. When I was growing up in Northern Russia, in Siberia, I think one of my children friends was going to this preparatory school to become Miss Russia. So there was a woman, she actually ran a school, and like children, like, I don't know, age 7, 5 would go there and they would take lessons to become Miss Russia. So you see, Drippy, it's a long, road to become one. I wonder how Miss Netherlands was preparing for that.
Yeah, exactly. And as I was saying, as you were saying, Miss Netherlands is a trans woman, and that has steered a lot of controversy about the fact whether a trans woman should participate. This also because coincidentally, Miss Italy, the woman who runs Miss Italy, is who is the daughter of the guy who started the competition in the 1940s, 50s, I think, or 40s. And she banned trans women. She didn't ban. She restated something that was already in action. That in order to participate to Miss Italy, you have to be born a female. What do you think about this? What are your thoughts about trans women competing? Should Miss Italy allow trans women to participate, or should Miss Italy not? Or what do you think? What's your thoughts as a woman?
I think it's a huge dilemma. On one hand, I think, with progressive feminism or extreme feminism, which I think we are going through today, especially after we watch Barbie movie, I wonder if having beauty pageant in 2023 should even be like existing, because why do we judge women on beauty? Like, isn't it not something which feminists have been sort of fighting against? Don't we judge, I don't know, Miss Brain 2023? Isn't it, should it not be the aspirational feature? Or I don't know, Miss Career, or I don't know, Miss Discovery, like, something which actually highlights capacity rather than superficiality. What is one take? On the other hand, I do wonder, women often argue, like, in the female space, what men occupy most of roles. Like, men has more power, men are paid more money, men are more promiscuous. I mean, is there always conversations which women often criticize, and this is what often sexual and gender conversations, which is the confrontation. And I wonder, so beauty pageant probably is the kingdom of women in a way, because it's for them, even though maybe they're judged by men, which is, I think, is also very subversive. But I'm wondering, when we actually look at transgender men entering this sphere, which probably...
Transgender women. No. This is an important point. I'll come back to this later because there is also something that regards transgender men. Sorry,
right. My brain is.
I know. It is confusing. Yes, I know.
Anyway, I just wonder if that place should be something which is protected for exclusively women, because maybe it's an opportunity to maintain this space which men just could not be part of. So I don't know if we should even have them. Like, what do they actually achieve by having this competition? What is the benefit, or what is the entertainment aspect it brings? Because I don't know, like, for example, I understand RuPaul Drag Race. I think there is big play on stereotypes, there is a big subversion, but also it's a great entertainment product. I think beauty pageants, they almost exist on like this domain of kitsch and cringe, and therefore I wonder, what is their relevance in our society today, in our society which promotes very different standards? Maybe the standards are not real, maybe they are trendy, maybe they are created, but nevertheless, if you go online and you start reading news, if you go on social media, what is being presented to us, it's very different from what we think about beauty pageant.
Yeah, I think you raised two very different points. One has nothing to do with trans women, but has to do with the pageants themselves, right? Because you say the question is not whether we should have trans women, the question is whether we should have pageants at all, right? But here the question is, are we going to abolish pageants? I don't think we are. So the question becomes, should trans women
I don't know.
participate?
We abolished slavery, might as well abolish women.
Yeah. I don't think that slavery was as voluntary as beauty pageants are. But I mean, at the end of the day, women decide to participate. What I don't understand, though, is that you have a very coherent point of view. What I don't understand about the people who have criticized Miss Italy for not including trans women is this. It seems to me like a contradiction, because most of the women who have criticized Miss Italy for not including trans women are the same women who criticize Miss Italy for existing. So you either think it's wrong for all women, or you want it to exist and include trans women. The two things cannot be. I see a lot of progressive feminists wanting trans women to participate, and at the same time criticizing the fact that a beauty pageant judges based on looks. At the same time, when it comes to radical feminists, like to trans exclusionary radical feminists, I didn't see many critiques on Miss Italy, for the simple fact that they are coherent. They are against Miss Italy, against beauty pageants in general, so they don't really care whether they include trans women or not, because it should be abolished in the first place. So yeah, and this is the first problem. The second problem is, well, you are right. Should we include trans women in women's spaces? Now, I was looking at it from an evolutionary point of view. I don't have a very defined point of view on this, because I am pretty much against trans women participating in female sports because of biologic advantage. However, it has been pointed out that in this case, trans women do not have a biologic advantage on biologic women, right? If anything, they are disadvantaged, right? So in this case, this is a good argument that some trans activists, not trans people, trans activists have put forward. However, then I look at the girls who participate, and I see that arguably, there were a lot of more beautiful biologic women than the trans women who won. And then the point for me became, maybe the point here is not to judge their beauty. Maybe the point here is to be, you know, the first trans beauty queen to win Miss Netherlands, right? It's more to clickbaiting and attracting press. So it's really losing its you know, if you say it's a beauty pageant, then judge it on beauty standards. Okay, that's
Well,
it.
but why don't we just have separate beauty pageant for transgender women and
Yeah,
transgender men and like anyone? Like
yeah,
we can just, because I understand there are many groups of people who are different and they have different biological gender. Why we don't just diversify? Like if people feel so strongly about having beauty pageants, or let's, because we are so inclusive these days and everyone is gender fluid and non-defined, why don't we just have one beauty pageant for all genders, like men, women? Let's just find the
yeah.
most beautiful person.
I don't think you can compare beauty standards of men with beauty standards for women. I
I
don't
mean,
think
there
you
are
can
ugly
compare
men,
them.
there are ugly women.
Exactly. Yes, yes, but they're ugly in a different way. You know, if you take a handsome man and you dress a handsome man like a woman, probably is an ugly woman. And if you dress a beautiful woman like a man, probably is an ugly man. So it's not comparable. You have to have comparable standards, right? In terms of width of shoulders and thinness of waist. So I do see your point. Why do these trans women not participate in transgender beauty pageants? Well, some of them do. And I agree with you. It's a category that is very important to keep, and obviously, and we need to encourage even more categories. And I am the greatest fan of RuPaul Drag Race in the world. Probably, I've seen every single thing that RuPaul has made, and I love it. I think it's great entertainment, light and intelligent at the same time, and stupid at the same time, which is great. Now, why should trans women compete in female categories? Because the problem here is not being included in a beauty pageant. The problem here is making a political idea can pass through. And the political idea is, I am a woman, right? So if I say I am a woman, you have to accept me as a woman. And therefore, I need to be included in all female spaces just because I say I'm a woman. So that's the reason. This is not about wanting to be in a beauty pageant, because then you would go to a trans beauty pageant. The point here is wanting to be accepted amongst other women, to say, I am a woman, right? How did you become a woman? Just by saying I am one, right? And by doing some plastic surgery. And this is something that some people approve of. The progressive people approve, and obviously conservative people do not approve. For conservative people, the point is that you are making being a woman, reducing being a woman to a series of aesthetic characteristics, where there is so much more than that, according to them, such as, you know, living a child as a woman, having periods, and all things that a person born male would never experience. Now, there is another thing that I was looking into. There is a philosopher called Helena Cronin. She's a Darwinian philosopher, a British, and she wrote many books on the differences between males and females. And some of these books have been also, some of these findings have been also studied by evolutionary biologists and evolutionary psychologists. And one of the consistent differences that we see between males and females is the fact that males tend to be, in all cultures, it's not a Western thing, it's not a white thing, it's not, you know, all males tend to, not all males, sorry, all groups of males in the world historically tend to be more ambitious than females. And according to them, the reason for this need to be ambitious is to be found in the parental investment theory, right? You know what parental investment theory is?
No, I actually don't. Tell me.
So it's basically a woman, if you give a woman a man, this woman will need 9 months to make a baby, right?
Indeed.
Indeed. So the parental investment of females when making, and this is something that goes far before humans existed, because it's something that, you know, dinosaurs already had, right?
All right.
So
So you
sorry?
mean like man man's investment in 5 minutes and women is 9 months. Is that what you're gonna say?
Precisely. Men parental investment is 5 minutes if you're lucky, and female parental investment is 9 months. This biologic difference determined a different evolutionary path. If you give a man 100 women, he can have 100 babies in one day, potentially. Okay.
Well, I mean, again, if you're like,
you know what I mean. You understand what I mean. If
Yeah.
you give a woman 100 men, she still can have only one baby in 9 months. Now, this difference in parental investment is what determines, it has cascading effects on female behavior and male behavior. And it's one of the reasons why females in nature choose males, not the opposite. You can see this in birds very well, because male birds are very beautiful, female birds are very boring, because male birds need to attract the attention of women. So males in nature tend to, in mammals as well, tend to spread their semen as much as they can, whereas females tend to choose very carefully who they're going to have babies with. And why? Because they have to invest much more, right?
but
So
also
this
because
is
you're
what
gonna get with genes, right? And genes are very strong.
Precisely, because they need to select their men very well, because you don't want a man with faulty genes. So there is much more competitions amongst males to get to the female they want, and there is much less competition amongst females, because they are the ones who eventually choose, because they are the ones with the highest parental investment. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Now,
That makes sense, but what does it have to do with ambition?
Yes, it has to do because males are selected, evolutionarily speaking, to compete more. Are evolutionary speaking selected to be more violent, are evolutionary selected to be, so as every male you see today is the product of a long 100,000 years old, millions of years old selection of genes that was based on selection. Okay.
And how comes I'm such an outlier, Drippy? Like, I feel like I'm more ambitious than many men I know, and I'm even more aggressive.
Yes. And that is why you should never use means to judge individuals. You should always use means to judge populations. You are right. This does not describe every female you know and every male you know. This describes averages. I am much more feminine in my behavior than you are when it comes to ambition. I know that. So it doesn't describe, it means when you meet a woman, you should not think, oh, she's less ambitious because she's a woman. No, because you don't know if she's an outlier. So what I'm talking about in terms of population, I'm not talking about in terms of individuals. However, outliers lie in the extreme. Therefore, people who are extremely ambitious tend to be in the male spectrum, because the two curves do not overlap completely. So the extreme ambition is all skewed towards males, which is the same reason why you have so many more males in prison than females, because those are the outliers of the male population, which are much more than the outliers in the female population when it comes to violence. And the same goes for ambition. You do have ambitious women, of course, but the most ambitious amongst humans tend to be male, because that's how the curve works. Also, there is another thing to be said. Usually female means cluster around the mean, whereas males are more spread. So amongst males, you have more intelligent and more stupid people. Even though the average intelligence is the same between males and females, the outliers are more extreme in males, and males tend to be more spread in terms of curves. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, you know, I have a perfect visualization of my masculinity. I was at an exhibition, and it was a sound installation which reflected to your a body movement, and you had to make some noise or sound, and it would, like, depending on how much noise you make and what movement you make, the installation will change. And I remember I jumped into this installation, and I was doing like boxing, jumping, clapping, stepping, and I was making like lots of very like intense dynamic movements. And when my female friend went there, and she was doing something almost like a ballet dancing, like very soft, very slow, and her sounds were very quiet, and I realized, oh my God, like I'm an outlier.
I always thought you were one outlier, and I'm also an outlier within the males, right? Now, the point why am I bringing this up in terms speaking about transgender? Because the funny thing is that one way to measure ambition is to look at the Guinness Awards, the Guinness Prize, right? The men hold the highest Guinness, right? And that's not patriarchal society. That is not, biased vision of men. They are simply more. They participate more because they're more ambitious. And the funny thing is that you males excel when it comes to Guinness, even in female typical things, such as the person who collects the more dolls in the world is a male. The person who irons things in the most extreme conditions, you would assume is a female because iron is stereotypically a female thing. No, it's a male, right? So you've got all these things that are stereotypically female being dominated by males. So the fact that you always see trans women competing in women things, you never see trans men competing in men things, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, in a way, this reconfirms the stereotype that trans women, in fact, have a more masculine typical behavior because they're so ambitious that not only they want to win their own category, but they also want to win in somebody else's category. So it does reconfirm, I think, the stereotype to a. So I was just thinking about this. It's not a scientific thing. It's just something that I was thinking about. It does confirm the tendency of differences in behavior.
I think you have a very good point. I think you might be very close to truth. I have my own beef with fashion and beauty pageants. So in my fashion career, when I was working as a stylist, I often worked with concept developments with photographers. And we once were preparing a shoot, and I think my shoots were often inspired by pop culture and stereotypes. And one of the stereotypes I wanted to work on was actually beauty pageant. And we put together like a whole mood board, sent it to editor. It was very prominent London-based fashion magazine. And they told us, no, we don't think it's right for them. And 1 month later, I opened a magazine and we literally replicated our storyboard page by page, like literally.
Wow.
So yeah, that's I remember I literally tore the whole magazine apart. I was raging with my violence, my masculine violence emerged. Yeah, so this is what I think about beauty pageants and stereotypes. Anyway.
Wow. That is, but one thing that I saw is that there was a lot of backlash online against the Miss Italy banning trans women. However, most of the when I read the comments underneath the posts, the comments were all supportive of the Miss Italy for doing so. So I was like, yes, the Patrizia Mirigliani, the owner of Miss Italy, did disappoint progressive people, but progressive people were the ones criticizing Miss Italy anyway, whereas the majority of the comments were supportive. So actually, she is in tune with the Italian population. And we need to remember, beauty pageants are not for us, right? Are not for progressive intellectual people, etc. They are for the average housewife. So as a beauty pageant owner, probably rather than launching a message that may not be understood, you want to encounter the values and meet the values of the population that watches the competition on TV and essentially pays your bills.
I mean, but this is the same problem many brands have. It's like when Gillette is trying to advertise its razors, for not their target audience. It's like every time brands which have a very specific customer who's probably is a returning loyal customer, and they have specific very average lifestyle, and when you show them this progressive or inclusive advertising, it's a bit like, what's going on? Like I think a lot of people would not identify with that, and you can argue you're trying to attract diverse audience, but your business is built on your loyal customers.
Exactly, you're losing your loyal customer. It happened recently. The Gillette case you're mentioning was a disaster for Gillette, but it happened more recently with Bud Light, the beer, that had a trans woman, Dylan Mulvaney, as a testimonial. And they had to fire the person who hired Dylan Mulvaney. They had to basically very awkwardly go back to what they were. It was a beer for manly male, like for those those average American boys who dropped the beer straight away, and they had to take action. And unfortunately, the saddest part is that Dylan Mulvaney, the trans woman who was called to represent the brand, was not protected by them. So when they understood that they were losing sales, first they hired Dylan Mulvaney, and then they dropped Dylan Mulvaney. And rightly, Dylan Mulvaney complained, said, now you have abandoned me. You wanted me before, and now you're abandoning me. This means that you were playing with me, you were playing with the community. So it was wrong from the start, right? And they managed it very badly.
I mean, we all can never win. Like, you can never win with your ideology. I think we can only have a society where we have pluralistic values, right? When we have spaces for different people, but to try to take people who believe in something and aggressively turn them into believing into something else, that's probably not what's gonna get there. I think it's more about dialogue and maybe incorporating some elements, maybe, but having a variety. And I think, you know, since what 70s, advertising is very much about that. It's about having different customer profiles. Maybe you have your transgender customer drinking the beer, but you also have your core customer, and you also need to target them. I think it's about having this different messages, different profiles. You know, this is what happens with many magazines, right? We do not have one cover now, multiple covers, because someone's gonna appeal to this cover, someone's gonna like a man, someone's gonna like a transgender man on the cover. And then same with fashion campaign advertising, right? So many different banners and posters, different images, different models, different ideas. And this just highlights what we cannot just go for one look, one idea, and especially if it's controversial, it's provocative, and hope it's going to resonate. It actually can backfire.
Yeah, because I think that the difference is that before, as you say, it was more about getting to different demographics, which is good. The problem is that at some point, I think brands have forgotten about speaking to their diverse body of clients, and they started to preach. Right, they forgot to speak to their clients, and they started to preach. This is what you have to think if you are a good person. And mixing morality and political beliefs with marketing, I think, is a very, very dangerous operation. Very, very dangerous operation.
Indeed, we noticed that in Barbie, but Barbie marketing seems to be successful nevertheless.
Yeah, Barbie marketing is successful, yeah, but because they were actually speaking to their own client.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work for every brand.
Speaking of what how can we say it, coming back to being accepted and clearing reputation. So Kevin Spacey is back to building his career in Hollywood because the charges have been dropped.
Are you sure he's back at getting the work, though?
Well, that's what I've read. Apparently now his focus is to work on his career.
No, he's focusing, I can believe. What I don't know is whether brands, whether films, yeah, exactly, whether films will actually hire. What are your thoughts on this? What are your post-MeToo thoughts?
I don't know, JP, I think with MeToo movement, it got extreme, and I think it's been weaponized to present oneself as a victim, because you can, I think, my thoughts, again, were not singular, right? Because I think nothing is ever black and white. On one hand, with MeToo movement, it is good to highlight what if something is abusing their power or someone is sexually harassing someone, that should definitely be flagged, and especially people should be held accountable. However, with MeToo movement, I think some people used it as a tool to build their career because they are a victim. And I find it problematic because there is a fine line between having fair and just relationship between people and another one to ruin someone else for the sake of your own success.
Yeah, I could agree with you more. We need to remember one thing. Me Too was born before Me Too. So the Me Too was born when a Black woman in America wanted to highlight the problems of poor women being harassed in the workplace, etc., etc., etc. This woman who started the Me Too movement, when Me Too went to Hollywood, she started saying, "This is not the Me Too I have created." Coincidentally, we discovered that Me Too existed only when actresses touched upon it. And the point that Slavoj Žižek made about Me Too was exactly the same that you highlight. It is that this is not a battle to protect women. This is a power battle. Because if you see the people who are using Me Too to their own advantage are actresses whose career did not work very well. In other words, people who were already in a privileged position and wanted to play the victim card to get more jobs. And it's not necessarily helping those women who are not actresses, who are not privileged, who are not in the who have no other form of protection. So so Zizek points is this has been used to as a power battle, as a middle class power battle. And I think that Zizek pointed out in that famous piece was that if you see how Me Too unfolded afterwards, they were attacking the working class. Basically, they were attacking working class males for catcalling, for very things that are not exactly the core of what constituted Me Too at the beginning. So, in other words, they were attacking bad taste in middle class men, in working class men. Right, men using catcalling, using certain, let's say, sexist definitions. So the focus shifted from an actual problem of abused women with virtually no power to a privileged middle class cluster of women who have already visibility and who are using it to improve their success. I think, however, the main problem of the Me Too is that, and this obviously beyond females, and because also Kevin Spacey was not sued by a woman, is that it has somehow it made the accusation coincide with guilt. That's my main problem with it. You are not guilty until the judge says you're guilty. This is one key principle of our Western idea of justice, okay, is that you are not guilty until a judge says so. We came to a point after Me Too started where the accusation is enough to consider you guilty. And that's what happened with Kevin Spacey. He was accused, therefore he was guilty. And this is, I think, the main problem, is that it biased the way in which even investigations are made. The accusation coincided with the guilt and also with the punishment, because now try to restore Kevin Spacey's reputation after this.
We shall see. Maybe something else will happen with this and it will evolve somehow. I think it's yet to be seen how like post Me Too will evolve.
I was talking to someone who works in Hollywood movie production, and they were telling me that after the Me Too started, the problems, so I think that one of the main problems that the Me Too created, amongst the many achievements, obviously, one of the problems that it created is that it made a males and female relationship impossible, because males did not know how to navigate relationships anymore. Because if you can sue me the day after we sleep together because you repent, or because you misinterpret me, paying a compliment or wherever, it's very difficult for me as a male to work alongside a female that I don't know very well, because I risk. So what happened in Hollywood is that all of a sudden they stopped hiring female assistants. Hollywood productions.
Mhm.
And that is because they were terrified that the assistant would sue, something that started out to improve women condition in the workplace was actually hindering the number of women working in the industry, because nobody wanted to have a female assistant, given the potential danger. I don't know how it's now, but this is back then. Yeah.
Oh, what are you gonna do with male assistant in Kevin Spacey's crew?
Yeah, that was also, I remember not only Kevin Spacey, but also Bruce Weber. Do you remember Bruce Weber being sued by the
Yeah.
model? Yeah.
Basically, you see, Kevin Spacey can offer opportunity to all the females, man. So all the females who've been abandoned in Hollywood can now go and work for his team. He's gonna not touch them for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, now we know that.
So you see, maybe it evens out itself, right? Like if there is no opportunity for your gender, you can go find another opportunity. You can also identify as someone else.
I remember Donna Rotunno, the lawyer of Harvey Weinstein. She launched a provocation. She's an attorney that has won every single cause. Everything. She's a lion, except obviously Harvey Weinstein. She lost that one, but she has won everything else. And she launched a provocation. She said, if I were a man today, I would ask women to sign a consent form before having sex, because that's the only way you can protect yourself. Imagine the awkwardness of asking for consent before caressing the person you like.
I think something is happening like this. I do notice men became less decisive in some situations. I think they are sort of not we're not as proactive as we used to. But maybe just me. Maybe I'm just getting too masculine. Maybe it's me. I think what, next time I will have to ask everyone's consent.
No, you're not the only person that is telling me this, actually, amongst, straight people. Now, an interesting provocation was launched by Camille Paglia. She's a genius, obviously, always. I think she's fantastic. She should intervene more on things. And she said that after women gained full freedom of doing whatever they want, legally speaking, I mean, they should behave like gay males, she said. If you are a gay male and you go on a Grindr date with someone, you just accept what is going to happen after. You don't complain about what's going to happen after. And sometimes you happen to sleep with somebody that you don't like, but I put myself in that situation, so I need to. This is what Camille Paglia says. I don't dare telling women what they should do.
I feel like soon I will be like, hey, is it okay if I take your pants? Can you sign this form quickly? Anyway. But yeah, this is my thought, which is probably maybe gonna rub some people off the wrong way. But I have spoken to a few people who told me they have been sexually harassed. And, obviously, I'm not talking about extreme cases when someone was raped. Because sexual harassment is, I don't know, if someone slaps you on the bum in a restaurant. And it has happened to me. I don't know, Jippy, has it happened to me? Has anyone slapped you or I don't know, touched you in a public place?
Well, I'm a gay male, so I get offended if they don't slap my bum. So it's a different story. But I do.
It's all about eyes of the beholder.
But you see, whenever I speak to my female friends, what I notice is that on average, I'm not talking about you specifically, I'm talking about other friends now. What they tell me about the males they like is very different from what my straight male friends tell me about the women. So in other words, what men look in women is very different than what women look in men, right?
Okay, spill the beans. What are men looking for? Everyone will want to know.
Any hole is a goal. That's It's very simple. That's what men care about. And women do not like to be considered a whole. But this is, there is a fundamental difference in what females look in males. And at the same time, males don't want to be considered a boyfriend after one hookup. So there is an inconsistency between males and females have the same possibilities for freedom. But what they're looking for is different. And this generates a lot of misunderstanding sometimes. Whereas when two gay males meet, they know that every hole is a goal. They don't need to explain to each other. When two lesbians meet, they know that they're gonna, probably meet again, right? So gay males to me are the essence of masculinity. Gay males are what straight males would do if women would think like them.
Yeah, but there are outliers. Let's never forget.
Of course, of course. We love outliers, right? And maybe we are outliers, but on average, right?
Yeah. But what I wanted to say, sort of, so I'm talking about, how was it in a Barbie movie in the beginning? Like insignificant sexual harassment, or how did we say it? Like mild sexual harassment?
Oh, you mean the
opening?
The trigger warning.
Trigger warning. So I'm gonna talk about trigger warning here, but it's like I don't know, insufficient sexual harassment. I don't know how you call that. So it's like, the cases when someone was, I don't know, someone put a hand down your pants, or someone, I don't know, kissed you at the party and you didn't appreciate it. And usually what like is told to me before it all happened, before someone slapped your bum, before someone tried to kiss you, it usually starts with this. You got a free drink, or someone like, I don't know, smiled to you and you talked to them and you flirted with them. So you entertained a conversation, an engagement, you received something. And another person saw it as a green light to proceed with sexual harassment. Yeah. And then this is the point when you think, no, this is not what I wanted. We say, like, it takes two to tango. Like, I'm not talking when someone drugged your drink and when you woke up somewhere. Like, I'm not talking about these cases. I'm talking about when you went to a public place, you probably had a drink. You probably flirted with a person, or maybe you got something. Like, for example, I have been slapped on the bum multiple times. Usually how it happened, someone paid for me, or I got somewhere and I sort of sweet talked my way into a party or something. Like, right? I didn't I didn't exercise equal rights. I tried to use a shortcut. Well, you pay for a shortcut in a different way. And this is what I'm not saying it's always the case, but I think often if you get involved into something, in Russian we say, if you like to ski down the slope, you also need to like to bring the sled up the mountain. And this is, you can't have fun without getting a bit dirty. And unfortunately, if you entertain this sort of informal conversation with someone, don't be surprised when their hand is down your pants 20 minutes later.
Yeah, I remember a female friend of mine who now she's a mother and everything, but she used to have a very rough in her early 20s. She was very rough, and she took a lot of drugs, and she went to rave parties, the ones that I don't go to. And basically, she told me, because there was a case in Italy of the son of a politician kind of sleeping with a girl against her will, and she was drugged and he was drugged. They were both on drugs. And what my friend said, I have been in that position many times, and I have taken, I don't know, what's that thing that ketamine, like those things that horses take. And she said, and the morning after, I realized that I had sex with a guy and I didn't like the guy. However, I didn't even think that was rape, because I was there with him. He was taking drugs with me. So I allowed that possibility. And also, if I was drugged and I was not a master of my own actions, then so was he. So, she established a symmetry. I don't know. I've never been in that situation, and especially I haven't been in that situation as a woman, so I cannot speak. But I think what she was telling me is pretty much what you are saying. There is not from a legal standpoint, but from a moral standpoint, there is personal responsibility that should come into play. If somebody abuses you in, that's different. That's a legal question. But for mild sexual harassment and stuff, I think that there can be levels.
Yeah, by the way, the stories like I'm telling, I heard them both from men and women of different orientations. So I
from
think
women as well.
From men and women, yeah. And yeah, so both like I heard some man who would be like, I was at a bar flirting with someone, and when we put my hand down my pants, I'm like, well, I mean, what can I say? But yeah, it's a bit like, it's almost like sometimes when I hear these stories, you know what? I was walking down the street and I saw Big Mac advertising. And when I went and I ate it, and now I'm fat. And McDonald's is to blame. It's almost like a bit like that. Well, you want a Big Mac, you didn't go to gym. Like, on opposite side of the street where was gym advertising. For some reason, you didn't go there.
Yeah, no, the only thing that I can say, but I don't want to comment too much on this because everybody, is master of their actions, etc. But I do remember the first time I encountered this was about 10 years ago. I was working in London. No, it was more than 10 years ago. Anyway, 14 years ago, maybe. I was working in London as a sales assistant in office shoes. And I remember a colleague of mine, she was very pretty and she had a miniskirt. And she told me that she liked wearing miniskirts, but she was extremely annoyed at men looking at her. And I said, hold on a minute. You are wearing a miniskirt to be watched. That's why
she's wearing underwear.
I wear a tank top because I like being watched. Okay, nobody is allowed to touch me. That's a different story. But watched, I mean, if I don't want to be watched, I cover myself up. And I said, it's a little bit inconsistent that you say you want to wear this, but you don't want them to look at you. Maybe, I don't know, that's a contradiction in terms, right? You cannot have the cake and also eat it at the same time. It's a contradiction in terms. You decide whether you don't want to be watched or whether you don't want to wear a miniskirt. It's inconsistent. So these inconsistencies are very confusing to me.
All right. Speaking of interesting fashion choices, so there is this Uniqlo bum bag, which became very fashionable, popular. And apparently the sales of designer handbags are declining. And I keep on reading different articles across different publications claiming that there is a crisis. And apparently, like, let's say women who are over 30 were still buying designer handbags, but younger audiences were not so keen as before. And apparently now there are two trends. So this bum Uniqlo viral bag, which is, I think, like 20 pounds. And this fabric canvas bag, like how we call them, grunge bags of your like favorite brand or some shop. And, I was at an event last week in London. It was not fashion event, but trendy crowd event. And I think I was the only person with designer handbag. I felt very outlier-like.
Yeah, we have been seeing an inflection in sales, but also we have been seeing that even luxury is changing. One of the few brands that is resisting very well this crisis of luxury is Zegna, because even luxury is stealth wealth, so it's unassuming luxury. I know that I'm wearing luxury, but my luxury is not show off. That's what stealth wealth means, and this happens whenever there is a financial recession. weirdly, this financial recession apparently is also affecting the top echelons. This didn't happen before. Before, usually was the middle class which was affected by recessions. Now it's also the upper classes that are not buying as much luxury as they used to. Now, one thing though that I remember is that the sales of designer bags dropped in the mid 2010s, because coincidentally, younger cohorts, younger people shifted their investments onto trainers. So the new money maker became designer trainers, like Balenciaga trainers, as opposed to bags. And it is only during the pandemic that a new It Bag dropped, which was the Bottega bag. That was the new It Bag, and we haven't seen an It Bag since that, that Bottega, and there was no It Bag before, right? For a couple of years. So the investment of consumers has shifted from bags to shoes to designer trainers over the last couple of years. And this is also a generational thing. Now, we need to remember that bags don't come in sizes, whereas clothes and shoes do come in sizes, and they pose a lot of challenges to brands because they need to be stocked in every size. They need to be, the stocking space is much bigger because you have to have shoes in every size. You don't have this with bags, so bags are a much safer way to invest in for a brand. So yeah, it's very. What do you think about the fact that Uniqlo is occupying this position?
I find, like this funny bag, or what is it, like funny bag, bum bag, it's just a bit sad, right? Like so utilitarian. It doesn't look like a pleasantly designed product. And I think Uniqlo has a lot of nice things. I just don't think it's particularly aesthetically pleasing. But I also, if I'm honest, I only use these grunge bags when I go my grocery shopping. I find it very uncomfortable, like for shoulder, to carry these bags. Where like, we're not made to carry something heavy. And then I also think, I don't know, it's all a little bit sad, but I think it's a very good advertising strategy. Like any brand can make one and slap their logo on. So I think it also became almost like community signifier. So, like if you buy a bag from this brand and like it's this bookshop, you can appear to be more intellectual. Or if you buy it from this art gallery, like you're a cool person. I think it's a bit of like this little lifestyle identifiers and symbolism. But I think, ultimately we had probably a decade of trash luxury of, new money, like new money which came from Asia, new money which came from Middle East, and a decade before new money which came from Russia. And this luxury was not sophisticated. It was, the luxury which was sold. Yeah, it was trash luxury. And it's almost like what happens post French Revolution, right, in 18th century, well, in 19th century, with mechanical production. The luxury sort of became accessible, but not really. It became a cheap copy of luxury. And that's why we ended up having this styles like neo-Gothic, neo-Baroque, because it was not authentic styles, and luxury was not real, but it was some sort of almost like masochistic, fetishistic luxury. And I think this is what we've been experiencing for a while. And in the background, we always have brands like Celine, Varro, Zegna, Ermino Savigno, Loro Piana, which are going steady. And there's the brands which you buy if you know, you know. And this is what, became aristocracy post-revolution, post-French Revolution, I mean. It's not what way disappeared.
For males.
Yeah.
That's the great masculine renunciation, because that's the moment in which males, as you say, renounce big displays. But females, the haute couture is born in Paris. So females carry on. Yeah. And then it trickles down to females in the 1920s as well with Chanel. Yes.
But also, even if you think about interior design and sophistication, today in London, even today, there are many tacky restaurants, there are many tacky cafes where people go queue to sit, and they are very expensive. However, you can have the best experience sometimes in a very minimal, simple place. And this is the true luxury, actually. You know, true luxury is about sophistication, taste, and, you know, it's not your 16th, maybe in a way, like maybe, but yeah, it's 16, 17 Europe, uh, you know, lack of restraint, which is what it used to be. But after that, luxury became about restraint. And this is what the true luxury today. It's about control, it's about taste, sophistication, and restraint. It's not what you do not enjoy it, you enjoy it in a very specific, almost controlled way. And that's why I think designer handbags, apparently the sales of bags like the Raw are still going strong, because they are the bags, if you know, you know, and very
exactly. Ideally, luxury brands are brands that only who wears them knows them, such as Valextra. I mean, whenever I mention Valextra to our students, to my students, they don't know what Valextra is because they don't buy it. Usually, if you know Valextra bags, it's because you buy them. And Bottega has been like so for many years.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
Before Daniel Lee, Bottega was one of those luxury brands. So what constitutes luxury, I think, is very easily measurable, is, as you said, high quality of manufacture and low availability. These two things create luxury. So you have to have a very high entry price. Is not what determines luxury. I don't think is how expensive the most expensive item is, but how expensive the cheapest item is. That's the reason why Louis Vuitton is not so luxury, because the entry price is much lower than, let's say, Hermes. Yes, luxury is low availability, and also low availability also in terms of knowledge. Not everybody is equipped to understand where the sophistication is. I think with the Uniqlo case, though, it's also due to the fact that we are almost disenfranchising ourselves from the 2000 mood of the early 2000s mood of Zara and H&M. Zara and H&M are very iconic for the 2000 up until the mid 2010s, and then the golden age finished, but also probably because of sustainability issues. Now, Uniqlo offers a very different solution to the problem, because it's a very minimalistic brand, very unassuming, very different from H&M and Zara, because Zara pretends to copy expensive brands, and H&M has a very recognizable high street style. But Uniqlo does something else. They work on basics. They invest everything on basics. I'm a big Uniqlo fan for this reason. And I think disenfranchising from H&M and Zara, besides wanting to participate in this quiet luxury, even though vicariously, right, is also because people want to distance themselves from the brands that have been associated with mass consumption and mass production over the last 20 years. I think there is also something in there about that. Now, it doesn't mean that they're doing any good to the planet by doing so, but politically, ideally, that's what I think they aspire to do.
I think it's very ironic. Like, yeah, Uniqlo, I like Uniqlo out of all high street brands, but also, Uniqlo is trying to do what the Raw does almost. We're trying to do this like basic wardrobe, which is unrecognizable, seems to be sophisticated, but the irony is they will never be it. And I think, again, it's like with Catch-22, where you try to replicate, but it's missing, it's what Walter Benjamin said, the aura, right, of an object. It's something which has sophistication, knowledge, and it has human touch, is it literally or metaphysically. And I think Uniqlo doesn't have it. Even though you can maybe go and customize your pieces today, we do like custom-made stitches and anything you want, like, or embroideries which you want to add. But I think a lot of people buy these Uniqlo bags because they think it makes them look more sophisticated. But reality is, the more you're trying to follow this trend, the more you look like anyone else.
I also think that crowds, because they don't have access to expensive bags. Some bags, I was looking at the prices of Prada, not to mention Chanel. Expensive bags have even doubled in price. I think that the crowds have an innate need for fashion in Western capitalistic society, even non-Western, but in capitalistic societies, have an innate need for a fashion. And I do think that, you know, if you cannot access the big brands, you will find your object of desire in a more achievable brand.
Indeed.
So in a way, Uniqlo satisfies a basic human need in a moment in which no other brand offers you anything achievable, right? So I think that's very important for fashion consumers to have. If I cannot access the real thing, at least I will access the something that approaches the real thing, even though it's not.
No, it totally makes sense. You are absolutely right. I just think, like, if we step away from consumer and we just look at it as an overall picture, I think it's a very interesting cycle of desires and reproduction of symbols which has taken place. And it just confirms what true luxury will always remain, and it will always exist. And there always will be a market niche, but the customer, they're probably always going to be very secluded, and you might never even meet them. You might pass by them, maybe you will see them from a distance, but you will never touch them. So maybe you will never sexually harass them either.
Yeah, so one now I'm going to anticipate something. One of my findings in the research I'm doing on fashion consumption and fashionistas is exactly this. This is exactly one of the findings I have found, this importance of accessing something even vicariously when you cannot achieve the real thing. And for fashionistas, this is exceptionally important for their satisfaction and balance.
Yeah, exactly. You know, luxury has two consumers. It has people who actively buy it and experience it, and maybe, like, you know, for holidays and whatever it is, dining experiences. And second part of consumers who are watching these people, or who are finding out about these experiences, which they will never do. And I think social media just made it a perfect breeding ground as well.
Yeah, I very much agree. That one is the cohort that buys it, and one is the cohort that dreams of buying it.
Well, harsh truth, right? Okay. Well, on this note, Culture Gone Bad says goodbye till next time.
Goodbye.
Regardless of how much you loved or hated this episode, now you absolutely must subscribe, leave us a comment, and give us a like.
Because remember, love and hate are one step away from each other. Till next time, Culture Gone Bad says goodbye.